Camille never imagined that the woman who raised her would one day rob her of everything: her savings, her trust, even her sense of belonging. What started as a family trip to Italy turned into a betrayal she'd never forget. Stay with me as I tell you what really happened. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to share it, drop a like, and hit subscribe to support this journey. Camille Turner was 26 and finally starting to rebuild her life. After years of struggling through unstable jobs, late rent, and empty cupboards, she'd finally found steady work. It wasn't glamorous, but it brought peace, the kind she'd never known growing up under her mother's roof. But peace never lasted long with Patricia Turner. Patricia was the kind of mother who turned love into control. Every kind gesture came with a price tag, every compliment with a warning. She kept power by holding money over her daughter's head. Camille knew that game all too well. Her younger brother Dylan was her opposite, the golden child. He could break a rule and get a laugh. Camille could make a small mistake and get a lecture that lasted weeks. So when Patricia announced one evening that she was planning a family trip to Italy, Camille wanted to believe it was a chance to finally reconnect. Maybe for once her mother wanted to build memories instead of walls. Patricia described it like the trip of a lifetime. Gelato in Florence, gondolas in Venice, laughter under the Italian sun. Camille's heart ached for it. She'd never been able to afford travel, and deep down, she thought maybe this could heal what was broken between her and her mother. But as always, with Patricia, kindness came with strings. "The flights are $1,650 each," she said flatly. "If you can't afford it, stay behind." Camille blinked. "That's a lot." Her mother's tone sharpened. "That's the price. Transfer the money to me directly." No mention of paying the airline, no receipts. Just her mother's bank account. Dylan leaned back with his usual grin. He didn't have to worry. Patricia quickly reassured him she'd help with most of his costs. Of course she would. Camille forced a smile, pretending it didn't sting. She didn't have that kind of money, but the thought of being left behind again, excluded, forgotten, hurt even more. So she told herself she'd make it work. She scraped together every cent she could. She cut back on groceries, skipped dinners with friends, even dipped into her tiny savings. It felt reckless, but she couldn't bear to miss what could be her family's first real moment together. Still, something felt wrong. Patricia refused to let her buy the ticket herself. "Everything goes through me," she snapped when Camille asked. "Don't make this difficult." That tone-cold, dismissive made Camille feel like a child again. But she silenced her doubts. After all, this was her mom. What kind of person would lie about something like this? Weeks later, just when Camille thought she'd finally scraped together the $1,650, Patricia dropped another bombshell. "The price went up," she said, flipping through meaningless papers. "Upgrades, taxes, baggage fees. It's now $9,640. Camille froze. "Nine, what?" Patricia's glare hardened. "Don't question me. Prices change. Family sacrifices for family, Camille. If you can't afford it, stay behind." Nearly $10,000, 3 months of wages. Camille's stomach dropped. Her brother leaned against the counter, smirking. "Don't worry, Mom's covering mine." I only had to throw in $500. That night, Camille cried in silence. She knew it was insane, but the thought of watching her family post pictures from Italy while she stayed behind, it was unbearable. So, against every warning her heart screamed, she began selling her things. Her laptop, her guitar, her grandmother's jewelry. Piece by piece, she dismantled her life until she had enough. When she handed her mother the envelope of cash, Patricia smiled like a queen collecting tribute. Camille told herself it would all be worth it. She was wrong. The morning of the flight, she woke before sunrise, suitcase packed, heart pounding with hope. Maybe, finally, she'd be included. At the airport, Patricia strutted ahead with Dylan, laughing as if nothing was amiss. Camille waited patiently in line, clutching her envelope of travel documents. When she reached the counter, the agent frowned. "I'm sorry, miss. There's no ticket under your name." Camille's chest tightened. "That's impossible." "My mom booked it." The agent turned the screen. Patricia and Dylan's names were there. Camille's slot was blank. Camille's voice trembled. "Mom, they don't have my ticket." Patricia sighed, not even surprised. "You should have managed things better. Maybe next time you'll appreciate what family does for you instead of questioning everything." "I gave you the money," Camille whispered. "Lower your voice," Patricia hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." Then, without another word, she walked away with Dylan toward security boarding passes in hand. Camille stood frozen as they disappeared beyond the checkpoint. Her suitcase felt heavier than it ever had. The crowd blurred around her as tears streamed down her face. After everything, after selling her belongings, draining her savings, she'd been left behind. When she got home, she sat on her bed, suitcase still packed. She cried until she couldn't breathe. But beneath the pain, something began to burn a need for answers. The next morning, she called the airline. The woman on the phone checked and said gently, "Ma'am, there was never a reservation made under your name." A round-trip ticket for those same dates costs about $780. Camille's breath caught. $780? Her mother had told her $1,650, then nearly $10,000. The truth hit her like ice water. Patricia hadn't just lied. She'd stolen. When Camille checked further, the confirmation came. Dylan's ticket had been paid for using her transfer. She hadn't just been scammed, she'd funded her brother's vacation. Her world collapsed. But out of that wreckage, something shifted. She wasn't going to be her mother's victim anymore. Camille gathered evidence: bank transfers, receipts, text messages, every lie in black and white. Piece by piece, she built a file her mother couldn't escape. Instead of suing, she decided to expose Patricia where it hurt most, in front of the family she spent years manipulating. When Patricia and Dylan returned, they bragged nonstop about their trip wine tastings, gondola rides, designer shops. Camille stayed calm, her evidence folder tucked safely away. A few nights later, at a family dinner, Dylan let something slip. "Good thing Camille covered everything," he joked. "Mom hooked me up with first class for free." The table went silent. Patricia's smile cracked. Camille looked up slowly. "Is that true?" Patricia waved it off. "Don't exaggerate," but the damage was done. Days later, Camille invited everyone for another family dinner. Patricia came dressed like royalty, thinking it was a peace offering. Instead, Camille laid her folder on the table. "These," she said, "are the real ticket prices, $780 each. Not $1,650, and definitely not $9,640. She passed around the proof bank statements, text messages, screenshots. Patricia tried to deny it, but one by one, relatives began to speak. An aunt admitted Patricia had once borrowed money she never paid back. A cousin revealed she'd been tricked into covering fake school fees. It was like watching dominoes fall. Years of manipulation unraveling in real time. Even Dylan, her mother's favorite, finally spoke up. "Wait, Camille paid for my ticket?" Patricia tried to quiet him, but he pushed his chair back, disgusted. "You used me?" For once, Patricia had no audience left to control. Her power crumbled right there at the dinner table. Weeks later, Camille's phone stayed silent. No guilt trips, no demands. Patricia was alone, cut off from the family she'd ruled through deceit, and Camille. She was free. She didn't need an apology. What she found instead was strength, the kind that comes when you stop chasing love from people who only know control. She took what she had left and started over. Applied for grad school, built her savings again. Step by step, She began rebuilding a life that belonged only to her. One evening, she drove past her mother's house, the same one where she'd spent years trying to earn approval. For the first time, it looked small, powerless. She smiled, turned the wheel, and drove on. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's peace.